Hey everybody, my name is John. Appreciate you spending some time with me. Here in a moment, I'm going to flip around the camera and we're going to take a look at some recent vintage pickups that I'd received in the mail from eBay, as well as some vintage that I picked up at a local card shop here in Denver just yesterday. But before we do that, I had actually recorded a video, or this same video, for these pickups prior to this video, and was getting ready to publish that video. And just happenstance, I hadn't really spent some time on YouTube over the last day or so, kind of ran across some videos that had been made. And I unfortunately had made, in the prior recording, a comment towards my addiction towards sports cards, but I was making light of that. And recently there's been a couple of videos. I think it started with Sports Card Dad, who is a bigger, if you want to call it, influencer in the YouTube sports card space, talking about his problems within addiction in sports cards. Subsequently, that's led to a couple of other videos which I watched, with people talking about this being a real problem, and genuinely addiction in sports cards is a real problem. So I made a comment kind of in bad taste, not in bad taste because it wasn't intentionally supposed to be negative, but I'd made a comment which, rewatching it, certainly would have been in bad taste if I'd posted it. I do want to talk about sports card addiction, or addiction, and as it relates to sports cards, and this could be for shopping in general. But I know in the early 2000s, I stepped away from sports cards because I was making bad choices, which didn't have any long-standing negative effects on my family or our well-being. But I found myself spending money, whatever little spending money we did have, to go buy boxes of cards to open up, and resulting in junk, right? Like, as we all know, opening up wax is basically a form of gambling, legalized gambling, but there's an aspect there. And I was buying some SP Authentic at the time, fairly high dollar for me and my budget at the time. And, ultimately, without getting into too many details, it was at that point in time when I realized I had to focus on my family, and I was able to walk away from sports cards, which I stayed away from the hobby for about 10 years. My son was a newborn at the time, and I didn't come back to the hobby until he was 8, 9, 10, and introduced him to sports card collecting, or tried to introduce him to sports card collecting. But I felt some of those effects, and it's one of the reasons why I don't open up sealed wax or packs today. I understand that there's a seriousness here, and for anybody who is struggling with spending money that they can't afford to spend, or the addictions related to sports cards, and the highs, the temporary highs that you get, whether it's the thrill of the hunt and finding something that you want to add to your collection, whether it's cracking packs and walking away from some of those a winner, and sometimes walking away, or most of the time walking away, potentially not making your money back. If those are things that you struggle with, my best advice is find somebody who you can talk to. And if you can't talk to anybody else, hit me up. Like, I've been in your shoes. I've been in those shoes. I think a lot of people that have been in the hobby for long periods of time have found themselves dealing with similar struggles of, am I making the right choice? Am I hurting my family? Am I hurting my finances? Am I addicted to sports cards, whether it's purchasing singles or cracking packs, or, buying boxes, or, making bad rush decisions, making hasty decisions on an auction that's ending, and you had a set budget and you blow that budget, and you find yourself, struggling with the dollar amount that you end up spending. This is a great hobby, and there's a great community of folks. The reality is that I think a lot of us, most of us, have probably dealt with some aspects related to addiction and sports cards. And so if you are struggling with these types of issues, find somebody to talk to, whether it's a friend, a family member, somebody in your local community, a local church. There isn't official type of services that I'm aware of that you can go and find help with. But if nothing else, if you guys need somebody to talk to, I have no problem spending time trying to help members of the community who are dealing with true addiction type issues.